Yeah, so that's kind of how the movie takes it. That's where the movie kind of goes with it. Mark loses his job as a coach, and then John hires him to come to his farm and be in the Foxcatcher League, or whatever it is, Foxcatcher grouping, whatever. But in reality, it didn't exactly happen like that. So from what we learned through the website, and through some other research, Mark had just lost his job, got fired from a different position, and John DuPont was actually teaching at Villanova. He was a coach at Villanova. And he got Mark to come on with him as an assistant. And soon after, Mark got fired for a party.
Yeah, supposedly. Again, we weren't there.
Yeah.
Apparently, we should have been there because it was an epic party he threw. And
yeah, apparently.
there was some, what do you call them? Minors with alcohol. And one thing led to another. So, again, in the film, he just kind of gets this invitation from John DuPont and follows up with it. And apparently, in reality, he was going through a string of bad luck where he had, just lost his job of coaching wrestling and moved on to another coaching position, and was on a string of losing his job there. And DuPont had offered him kind of a way out if he
went to the farm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if somehow he orchestrated that party just to force him.
Had a hand in it.
Totally KY. Yeah, motherfucker. KY 10 fingers deep.
He was smooth.
4 fingers and 2 thumbs.
So that's kind of what happened, and actually Dave never became a part of Foxcatcher until Mark had already left. And
that's reality versus real reality.
Yeah. So
yeah, and in the film, they're pretty much there concurrently. Mark is there at first, and things get very weird. And John DuPont always wanted to have Dave there, but again, Dave has a family, and so he makes his decisions more patiently and based on a lot more sound decisions than Mark. Mm-hmm. So Mark saw the opportunity, pursued it, probably bit off a little more than he could chew, because he ends up finding out about John's tendencies. He kind of pops by the cottage late at night. He had all these, people living in their own little one-off homes on his property. And he just kind of stopped by whenever, and it's kind of weird. I mean, yeah, it's his house, but it's like, there's no expectation of privacy or time to yourself. And so he was expected to always be training, and one morning he wasn't. And that kind of set off DuPont, and they also had other issues that were keeping Mark distracted, which I thought they illustrated well in the film, was them doing cocaine together, right? Because that's preparing for Olympics. Cocaine's probably not what you want to be on. Maybe caffeine, but I don't know about cocaine. Yeah. And then on top of that, they hinted at this very sexually charged relationship between Mark and DuPont.
Which Mark claims never happened. Mark very much disliked that part of the film.
Right. But I think it added a lot to the tension, again, of Hollywood, right? Yeah. Like dressing it up, and one of those creative decisions they made. And Channing Tatum, being like Mr. fucking Magic Mike and all this other shit. He knew he his character, he took the, what do you call it? Took it all in good stride.
Yeah.
Took one for the team. He took the blow well.
Yeah.
And that really added a lot to like the drama.
Yeah.
And that kind of helped accelerate that turn of events of like, okay, we need Dave, and now it made the arrival of Dave that much more tumultuous, because you have Mark who's trying to speak with his fellow colleague, Olympic gold wrestling brother, and also his boss.
So in the movie, they both kind of show up together, or they don't show up together, but they come together, and they're at Foxcatcher Farms at the same time. While that wasn't actually the case, what really happened was that Mark was there for a number of years, and he left due to not being a big fan of John DuPont. And Dave comes in, and Dave was there for about 6 years until he wanted to move on. He wanted to go teach somewhere else. And he was going to do this after the 1996 Olympic Games, which happens ironically in Atlanta. John was not a huge fan of that idea, so much so that he took Dave's life, and he did actually go and shoot him in front of his wife, and
apparently on his own property. So he caught a body that day, and in the film they made it they rushed those scenes along, so it looks like it was almost leading up to. It was very inevitable, very ominous tones and shit, like bitch, I'm gonna get you, right? So it was in the film. It was actually a fucking drive-by.
Yeah, it was more of like, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm gonna shoot you.
Yeah,
but I mean, I'm not sure
how it actually went down, but yeah, and ultimately it caught up to him, kids. So when you're going through life making these decisions, dare to stay off drugs. Who am I gonna date? Who's gonna go to the prom with me? What do I do with this loaded revolver? When you start reaching these crossroads, you know which ways not to turn, right? Because now, with all that money, really didn't even save him from the ultimate end when his apparent death from natural causes in 2010 in a prison cell. So nobody wants that, right? Just getting like toe up from the ankles up and and fucking stabbed and shanked when your life was millions of dollars. But another thing that kind of hinted at DuPont's madness, like this tick, was this altercation, if you even want to call it that, he had with Dave. Because again, he expected wrestlers to be in the gym pretty much religiously, right? So
we're talking about in the movie.
Yeah, in the film. And he drives to Dave's little apartment cottage on his property, and he sees him playing with his kids, and he just gets out, looks at him, he says, I'm with my family. Sunday's family day, John. And Dave has a tendency to call John DuPont as John. He doesn't call him Eagle. He doesn't call him Coach. Barely. Just calls him John. And I think that, kind of normalizes, the thing there, because there's no title, right? And a lot of times when you're addressing somebody that's above you, right? You say Mr. or Sir, instructor, doctor, right? You give this appropriate title as a form of respect. And Dave, in his character in the film, doesn't really do that. He speaks to more like an equal, or just, a guy that's off to the side and, needs to be minding his own business. And John's face, I don't even think Steve Carell's character says anything when he gets to that issue.
Yeah.
Says it's family day, and he just angrily just gets back in the car and leaves.
Yeah, I don't remember him. He just kind of walks away.
Yeah, it was very, very few lines there, but they said so much with their, the emotions and the scene that they created there. Mm-hmm. Just seeing one character with this family and really enjoying his time, which was what he was always about, and why he didn't even want to go to Foxcatcher in the first place.
Right.
Because of his family. And then we have John DuPont saying, I'll pay whatever it takes to get Dave over here. But he did not consider that, that nominal amount, that fee being time itself away from the wrestling profession. And that just pissed him off. So much so that the next scene is fucking drive-by in action. And to me, the sickest shit about it is when he's getting ready, John tells one of his staff members, go warm up the car. Right? Yeah. Why would you, if you were like just doing it off the cuff, right? You just hop over there on a fucking horse or whatever and just do it. He premeditated the shit. Because he said, go warm up the car. Because I'm not driving over there without the heater. Right? So much premeditation, and seeing how it all just slowly came together for him was like, wow. This really, really turned from, this took a very, very deep and dark turn a lot of places here. This is not about wrestling anymore.
Yeah. I really I like how the film portrayed the relationship between Mark and his brother Dave. I didn't really get a lot of backstory on them in terms of their, like, how they actually were as brothers, and if they talked or whatever. I'm sure it's probably in the book, but in the film you really get a sense of Mark really wanting to be in Dave's shoes. And Dave was offered the position by John at Villanova before Mark, and Dave recommended Mark to be the assistant coach, and that's how he got his job with John. But I don't really get a sense of their relationship from what I've read and what I've researched, but through the film I see this kind of longing to be what Dave is, and where Dave has gotten in his life, Mark hasn't achieved it yet, and so he is aiming to get there. And it's a really good, like, brotherly relationship that they end up having.
Yeah, it's cool. They both get gold, and it's funny you say that. So they both kind of do achieve it, but I think you're right. Like, he does want to be more refined, I suppose, like his brother. And when the beginning of the film, Dave is supposed to be giving a speech to some high school, but Mark shows up, the younger brother, and he's not as how do you say it? Articulate, word savvy.
Yeah, smart. Simply put.
Omar said that. Mark Schultz. Omar Torres said that. And so
that's the impression we get
from the film.
From the movie.
Take that up with the director.
Yeah.
And so
you approved it.
And so Mark shows up. He gives a speech, and he's going like to the office of this high school. They're cutting him a check, and he say, "All right, Schultz, Dave Schultz." He said, "No, I'm Mark. Actually, Dave's my brother." Because apparently Dave was supposed to show up and give the speech, and a woman writing out the check and taking information looks a little off put, and he says, "Well, we both won gold," something to that effect. And it's like, well, we're just as equally as good as just as good as him. We both won gold, and that kind of resonates throughout the film. Like, I'm just as good as him. I'm just as good as him. But we see his character's career take a spiraling down, approach as the film goes on, because he gets more and more off focused, and his resiliency, like everything about him, he just kind of psychologically cracks and can't seem to keep pace with with his own career, whereas Dave just keeps like going, like he's on an effing mission. And yeah,
it's a good movie tactic, because you see them having issues at first. You see the conflict of the two brothers right at the beginning, and you see it kind of at a level where it's okay, not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it's okay, and then it just goes down. It goes further and further down as the film goes on, and then by the end, by the climax of the story, they love each other like brothers.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling you get. You feel like they like anything that were to happen to one of them would affect the other one very, very much.
Yeah. And Dave even goes out of his way to say, as long as I'm here in the film, I want my brother to be compensated for his time as well, even if he's not participating, because he knew, how much he'd sacrifice moving to go out there, and how much he had to endure. So
even if it's not like a direct comparison